my goodness. Okay. I'm having problems with my camera and I didn't get a chance to even look at my hair. Oh my goodness. Okay. Good morning, everybody. This is Neshi Lowcuts. It's a technically challenging morning this morning. Sunday, September 9th. Hi, Rochelle. Oh my gosh. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with the technology. I don't know. I was working on the magazine last night and I had been doing a lot of copying and pasting and that sort of thing. And so I thought when I was done for the evening, I thought, well, I better turn off my computer and it needed to be charged anyway, you know. So that's what I did. And I get up here this morning and things are running a little late anyway. And my camera, it wouldn't read my camera. I'm going, I don't understand what's going on. And so I thought I was testing and I hit go live and it was like, oh my gosh, here we are. My camera is working. It's just one of those mornings. Hello, Rochelle. And Minnie just joined us, and so did Elise. Yay. See, Elise, I did get your message about the Dropbox, okay? And I can do that for you later today. So it is gorgeous here. Cold, though. It was 42 degrees when I got up this morning, and we're supposed to have a high of 68 today. Now, I don't mind the high. That's pretty good, actually, but it's cool. It's cool enough to wear pants and socks. Anything below 55 for me, and I'm cold, right? And I'm actually asking for a hot flash to warm things up a bit. Yep. Hey, Mary Anderson Fry. Good morning to you. George might actually come up in a bit to join us. Paul has him out. We're trying to get him used to his leash, and I did get him a gentle leader. I don't know if Paul's going to use a gentle leader, though. So George and Paul might be up here to join us. Minnie is saying, morning, Neshi, I'm here for just a bit. Good to see you. Good to see you, too. Yeah, and Rochelle says it's 52 degrees there in Michigan where she lives, but sunny. Yes, it's definitely sunny here. It's gorgeous, actually, except for the a little bit cooler temperatures. Hi, Mary. This morning I have tea. It was a tea kind of morning. I didn't have to make coffee this morning. I could have. But when Paul went to go get Mom's Sunday paper, because she gets that every Sunday morning, right? Where he gets the paper, I think it's at Quick Trip. He does this points thing with them and had enough points for a free cup of coffee. So Mom got the free coffee this morning. So I just did some water and made some tea. This card this morning to show us the energy for the day was very interesting. Very, very interesting. It could be somewhat of a challenge to really bring in the understanding of the essence of the card. And I'm going to show you why. This is what the card says. I perceive my difficulties as opportunities for spiritual growth. Yeah, let that one sink in a little bit. I perceive my difficulties as opportunities for spiritual growth. And on the back side of the card, it says, you can learn more when there are many obstacles than when there are few or none. You can learn more when there's more obstacles than if we didn't have any. Can you see how it could be a bit of a challenge to take that in, to take it in? Many are saying socks and pants here too. And for my forced therapy walk today. Yeah. Oh, you guys are going to do a walk. Yeah. I wish I was there to join you. Those are good. I love doing those therapy walks with you. Yeah. This particular card, the energy for today, having us take a look at how we perceive are the challenges or the difficulties that we encounter in our lives, right? In an intellectual level, the mental level, sometimes we understand it, you know. When we look at it from a logical point of view, just the phrase, I perceive my difficulties as opportunities for growth. On an intellectual level, we say, yeah, we can do that. Yep. I understand that. And then we turn to life as it's happening. And sometimes it's not easy to accept the challenges and the difficulties as spiritual growth. Because sometimes when you're right in the middle of it, or even at the beginning of it, in the beginning, sometimes it's so subtle. We don't see the shifts and the changes and maybe the signs or the synchronicities, right? And then when we get down the road a bit with the challenge, when we start noticing, hey, this doesn't feel comfortable. This doesn't feel comfortable at all. And then sometimes we even ignore that until we actually get to feeling like we just got hit by a Mack truck, and then we turn our full attention to it, right? And it's in that moment, it's hard. I think it's hard to see and to understand, to feel that the challenge or the difficulty is about soul growth. Because usually when we're at that point, we're in a lot of mental and emotional pain. It's past discomfort. It's a crisis at that point, and I don't know why, as humans, that we tend to do that. Ignore or not take into consideration the early warning signs, right? The early synchronicities that say, hey, we got change coming up. And I like to think that when we're aware and we can take in those synchronicities and start asking for assistance from our spiritual teams, that the challenge or the difficulty is manageable and can even be somewhat joyful, fun. That's only if we're aware and we reach out for help, right? Yeah. That's why I said that this card could actually be a challenge in itself to take in on a Sunday morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at. And I do agree, though. I do agree with the other statement, is that you can learn more when there are many obstacles than when there are few or none. I actually agree with that, because it's when we're stretched a bit. Our belief systems are stretched. We're made to touch the edges of them, to test them out again. Are they still a truth for me? When we're stretched out of our comfort zone, is when we do have growth. I do believe that. It's not necessarily has to be painful. It could be, could cause some of those butterflies in the stomach, the ones that you get just before you step on stage, that kind of feeling. I think that when it's out of balance or when we're struggling with it, when we're when we don't want to experience it and we're trying to do everything that we can, we're struggling against it, is when we start feeling the discomfort heading into pain. That's what I think. Only because I've experienced it. Even though we are two-legged human beings who are recognize and understand that we're spiritual beings having a physical existence and experience. We understand and embrace the sacredness and the light and all the good stuff that, as energy workers, that we believe in, right? Even with that, there comes some time in our lives when, man, we don't want to change. We just got it just the way we like it. We're comfortable. And then something happens and it literally turns it upside down, sort of, or sideways. Actually, what I got was this feeling of when you're in a skid, like when you're driving on icy road or black ice, and you touch your brakes and you go into kind of a skid, kind of like that. You kind of go sideways, and that things that if you don't let up on the gas, if you just kind of let the vehicle right itself, you're turning the wheel, but no gas, no brakes. You're kind of gliding into it and steering into it, I think is what they say. It's kind of like that. I like that image, actually. Steering into it. Hey, Mary Sackwick's joined us. Good morning, Mary. It's good that you're here. I am going to do a quick little something here. I'm going to actually share the live stream. I almost forgot again. Well, there we go. And so that's when I drew the card. I was working with my team this morning, my spiritual team, and when they gave me this card and I read it, I had to sit there for a minute and think, oh, this could be actually one that's going to be a little challenging to share about. And so I'm going to share it to my timeline. I'm live streaming. Please join me. One of the things that, I like technology, I do. But when it works, it's grand. When it doesn't, it's kind of a pain, isn't it? It's one of those challenging mornings, that's for sure, with technology. Working on the magazine, it's all about working in the cloud and getting documents sent back and forth and uploaded or downloaded. And sometimes we run into challenges, and that's what happened this morning. And so it kind of started out that way, and I brought it up here with me. Oh my gosh. And now I'm going to share it with the closed group for the radio and magazine. And I'm just going to say, please join me. There. And just select the group, and there we go. Good. The other thing I wanted to check is because I don't know, there. I want to make sure that the comments are actually working. There we go. Okay. Because sometimes the comments stop working for some reason, and I have to double check it. All right. So this is the card that we drew this morning, and that is, I perceive my difficulties as opportunities for spiritual growth. And the backside says, it says, you can learn more when there are many obstacles than when there are few or none. Another good imagery that came to me when I was thinking about this card and its meaning, what could it mean? It's kind of like agility training for dogs. I don't know if you've ever watched them on television or if you've been there in person to watch the dogs run the agility challenge. And there's a lot of obstacles put in the ring, and they've been trained how to run these obstacles, and it's a timed event, right? But when you're training a dog for agility competition, that is kind of like when we do our challenges in life, right? Once they master one of the challenges, then they put in another challenge. They put in another obstacle to run. It's kind of like that. That's what I flashed on this morning. It's like, so when we master one thing, or we have that soul growth with one of the things put into our path, then the next one comes up. And then we get to use our tools and our gifts in another way and look at how we can master this next challenge, right? And so that image was really good for me to help me understand what this card means. But I also have to say that when we're in the midst of that challenge is when we don't see very clearly, we don't sense very clearly, and that's when we need the most help. Yeah. Rochelle is saying, I've had many obstacles in my life, and the last one was the crossing over of my husband. Yep. Yeah. And isn't it, I mean, intellectually, we understand that even with those kinds of experiences that are heart-rending experiences, that there's soul growth in it for us, right? Intellectually, we understand that. Emotionally, it's an entirely different story. I watched both my mom and my mom-in-law go through their grief when their husbands walked on, when my dad and my father-in-law walked on, and watched them over the last 8 to 10. Let's see, it's been 8 years from my dad, and it's been 20 from my father-in-law, and watching these two women go through their grief and trying to help when I can, trying not to be too intrusive and say, if you could try this, it might be helpful. But to sit back and witness it, right? Yeah. And what they've gone through and what they're still going through after all these years. I think it's true that the grief, is really all about emotion. It really is. It's all about emotion. And what they say, both mothers say, is that you never really get over it. You just learn to handle it better and differently as time goes by. One mother wants to, and my mother-in-law, she's ready to go. She says, I'm ready to go and join Al. There's no reason for me to even be here. And yet here she still is 20 years later, and had to learn, that one lesson about control. She has no control over that, really. And so, and she's a pretty devout Christian. And so it also has challenged her belief system in many ways. And my mom, on the other hand, she says it's just the way it is, and it's the way it's going to happen. It's the way the Creator wants it to happen. It's the way God is leading this. I wake up every morning thankful that I have another day, and try to do the best with that day that I can. And she's 99, And what's it like for her to outlive one of her children, right? Yeah. So I think that, Rochelle, the emotional end, we try to make logic out of it, and there's no logic to that. Yeah, it's our mental mind trying to wrap itself around it. And um, just watching the two women in my life, my two elder women in my life, one is rather logical about it and is, after 20 years, still grappling with it. And the other person who is, I'm not saying she's using her emotions, because my mom hides from that too, um, has a different way of approaching it, a different perspective. Yeah. You know, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard even watching it. It's hard even watching it. Um, Mary saying, watching a good friend go through the grief of losing her husband unexpectedly. I don't know how she's surviving, but she's walking through it, growing and forever changed. Uh-huh. That's for sure. Hey, good morning, Cindy Lynn. Aw, felt good to sleep in. Good for you. I'm going to live vicariously through you. I should. I'm teasing about that, really. George is good for me. Really, he is. I was already tired. I was already lack of sleep. So another layer of it really isn't all that different. It's good. It's a good thing. Um, yeah. Big hugs to you too, and sending that all the way over to Rochelle. Um, Rochelle, let's see. How many years has it been since your husband walked on? I'm just curious. I should know this, but I can't recall it. How many years has it been? Boy, my camera. I'm using my laptop camera, and it is good, but I tell you, I wish I could have had my other camera working, because the I think the picture is a little fuzzy. Yeah. So this card, I'm going to show it again since we had some people come. This is the card that was drawn today. I perceive my difficulties as opportunities for spiritual growth. And the flip side of that is you can learn more when there are many obstacles than when there are few or none. And I agree with both statements, actually, but it's how it's played out in our lives, um, and this earthly plane, that gives us the experience, the soul growth. And like I was saying, is intellectually I believe we try to find the logic in the challenge. And if we can find the logic, and be able to wrap our minds around it somewhat, even, is that somehow it gives us an easier experience with it sometimes. I think that's because that part of our bodies, that part of us, can relax and say, oh, I've got this. Whereas our emotions, our heart is still, that's the part of us that can be very challenging. And what's coming to me is that sometimes that makes it a challenge, more than a challenge than it needs to be, is that we don't show our emotions, that we either repress them, suppress them, ignore them, right? Push them away. Can't cry in public. Can't cry in front of other people because it shows you're vulnerable and that you're weak. And there's actually, my mom's generation actually says that, is that when you're crying, you're weak. I don't know why I'm so weak, because they're crying, especially women. We have these emotions for a reason, why they're so close to the surface. And so I think that we make it harder on ourselves when we don't express those emotions, when we don't cry, when we don't feel the fear under it. And in many ways, that's the part, that's the challenge, that's the soul growth, is to be able to, take that deep breath and face that fear. Face the fear. What is it? What is that fear? Name it if you can. So he's been gone for 3 years then, huh? Or almost 3. Yeah, 3 years. 3.5 years. Wow. Guess who is here? Hello, baby. Oh, Georgie's here. George, come here. Whoops. Gotta try to get him around so I can lift him up. Paul's here too, by the way. Oh, he's trying to bite his leash, and you gotta turn around here and pick him up. Hey, George. Oh, he's getting to be kind of a big boy, huh?
Yeah. Leash off.
Yeah. Here's George. Oh, say hi, George. There we go. Oh, look. See, there's George. He's getting big. Oh. He wants to play with his best buddy, his best friend, Paul. He's doing good. Both of them are, actually. George, we're trying to get George used to being up here, so he knows the lay of the land, and feels comfortable, because he's going to need to be with me when we do some things up here. So trying to get him used to it. And Cindy Lynn saying, mine was 9 years ago since mine passed on. Yeah. It's not something you really get over, but but your life grows around it over time. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Cindy Lynn. Yeah. Hey, Teresa's here, one of my other sisters. And Mary Summers just joined us. Hello, ladies. Cindy Lynn says, yeah, baby George. Yeah, baby George. He is cute. He's a handful. Makes me laugh. Now, he is a mix, right? His mom was a golden retriever. His dad is a yellow lab, and they're called golden Labradors. And I think he just spilled his water. I think there's paper toweling, Paul, in the one cabinet as you're facing them on the right-hand side. And George is very happy about it. So last night, one of the things that we found out about George is he likes to sleep upstairs and to go to bed, right? And so he tells me when he's ready to go to bed. Usually I'm the one that's up late because I'm still working, right? And he's usually ready to go to bed around between 9 and 10. And I still have at least an hour or hour and a half left of work. George, come here, babe. Good boy. So he tells us when he's ready to go to bed. Well, I should have gated off the stairs leading up to the bedrooms. And I didn't do the gate the way you're supposed to. I just kind of leaned it. And with the lean, it's kind of like a ramp then. And he jumped onto the gate and he ran up the gate, which isn't very far, but went up the gate and then up the stairs. And he was running. And so it took me a little bit to get the gate out of the way so I could follow him upstairs. He made it up about 3/4 of the way up the flight of stairs when he slowed down and realized, oh my gosh, this is a lot of stairs. And so I had to pick him up and took him up the rest of the way and put him to bed. But yeah, he reminded me of a ninja warrior, those challenges. We talked about obstacles, and I don't know if you probably can't hear that, but don't you just love it when you hear their paws on the floor when they're running and the ground? So these challenges. So when the message is, I perceive my difficulties as opportunities for spiritual growth. You know, sometimes when I don't want to say on the other side of a challenge because especially when we're talking about, when the ladies are in the chat room talking about, the passing of their husbands, because I don't know if you're ever on the other side of it. I like what Cindy said. Cindy Lynn said that it's not something you really get over, but your life grows around it over time. It's kind of like a wound in a tree. That's what that sounds like. Because, the bark, what it does is it encompasses that, right? As it grows. One of the things that happens is that our compassion for others goes deeper. That when somebody tells you that they just lost their spouse, their significant other, a beloved, that they've walked on, that they've passed away, and you look in their eyes and you recognize it. You remember what those initial hours were like, those initial days, the months that turned into years, right? And so you have not just compassion and empathy for them, that you actually sympathize with them. And when you come from your heart, that when you share things that helped you at the beginning, is very helpful to them, because at some part of their bodies, whether it's their heart, their mind, their physical body, they recognize a kindred soul in you, right? That you truly do understand what they may be going through because you've been there. And so you can use that experience to help someone else, to help them through those initial days. One of the things that I've always noticed when someone walks on is that the family and the friends that are left here to live the rest of their lives, right? In the first few days, weeks, after someone dies, is that there's a lot of attention. And people show up. They want to give you food. They want to, check on you, especially around the funeral time, right? There's a lot of activity at the first days, couple weeks. It's about a month to 6 weeks into it that all of that dies down, and you're left with loneliness and being alone. There's not that much activity around you. And so one of the things that I know that's helpful, because one, I've seen it done and I've done it, right? And that is to check on them in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, a month or two. And then periodically checking on them so that they know that there's somebody thinking about them, sending them cards in the mail. My mother and my mother-in-law did that for each other after their husbands walked on. My mom sent my mother-in-law a card every couple of weeks after Al walked on. And, and sometimes it was, a heartfelt card, one of those emotional Hallmark kind of cards. And then eventually it morphed into writing about her day and asking my mother-in-law how her day is going. And so they were kind of like pen pals, writing back and forth. And my mother likes to read the Sunday paper and the Sunday comics, right? The funnies. And she would cut one out and send it to my mother-in-law with a card, or send her a funny card after a while. And then after my dad passed away, my mother-in-law did the same thing to my mom. was sending her cards and checking on her. And so, um, even though it is that challenge, you don't see it as soul growth. It doesn't feel like it. It feels raw, emotionally raw. That when you have allowed some time to pass and your grief is still there, but it's not as intense, is that you have the opportunity to reach out when you see someone else going through something similar. Your compassion is so much deeper. Yeah, and the other person appreciates it. They might not seem like it at the beginning, but as time passes, they realize, what was helpful and what wasn't. What isn't helpful, and most people don't even know what to say, really. If you've never experienced someone close to you passing away, you really don't know what to say to that person that's experiencing it. And, my sympathies, my condolences, that's nice, but that doesn't really express a lot of emotion, And so I knew this card was going to be a challenging one. Yeah. And Cindy Lynn says it really does make a difference to have someone who really cares check in. I didn't have that experience at the time, but would have loved to have had that. Yes, I know. When years ago, decades ago, when we see that life that was slower and less complicated, I don't want to go back to that time frame, to the 50s, 40s and 50s, but there are some aspects about it that was good. There was front porches. Neighbors knew neighbors. You really had to rely on your neighbors and your family to thrive, right? And so when they had a loss in their family, when someone passed away, neighbors would literally be over there with food and to be able to sit with the person, and they would be invited to dinner, and they would have the support system within their own communities. We don't really have that in modern times. We rely on, as Paul's going through his phone, we rely on texts. We rely on technology. The human quality doesn't really stretch that far, right? And so if we could even just take that little piece from this card, the essence of this card today, is that if we have somebody in our lives that could benefit from us reaching out to them and seeing how they're doing, right? It's a little thing that could go a long way. Yeah. And knowing that that's part of our soul growth, because we know what they've been through, because maybe we've experienced an aspect of it, right? I mean, we can't know exactly what they're going through because we're not them. And it can't be exactly the way we experienced it. But we recognize the challenge, right? And we can support them in that. Yeah. Let's talk about love. Love. Oh my gosh. Let's see. All right. So with today's message, I really do think that intellectually we understand it. Emotionally, it's more of a challenge. And we can help each other through that. Yeah. All right. So everything or anything that you heard today, that if it resonated with you, yay, grab it, embrace it, see how you can use it, or it has a purpose for you, right? As the energy of the day unfolds, see how it comes to you. Right. And if it didn't resonate with you, that's okay. That's all right. You can just leave it alone. It wasn't for you. Or you can be the messenger and share the video, the recorded show, with somebody that you might know that would either benefit from it or is searching for the information but just didn't know where to look. You can be the messenger, right? And please look for us at Star Nations Radio Network live stream shows here on Facebook. We've got shows coming up this week. We have, let's see, we have Tuesday, we have From Star to Stone with Mervyn Kelly, George, from 9 a.m. Eastern, Eastern time on Tuesday morning on the 11th. And then right after that, we do this live stream. And then right after this live stream is Polly Jo LeBay's show, Chakra Sessions, at noon Eastern. And then in the evening at 8 p.m. Eastern is my weekly show, Communications from Home. And my guest this week is Julie Hedges. She's one of our live stream show hosts. She is a contributing writer to the magazine, and she's also one of our published authors. And what we're going to be talking about is truth. Yeah, truth. Speaking your truth. And then the consequences to speaking your truth. Sometimes it's a challenge in itself, right? So join us at 8 p.m. Eastern for that. And then on Wednesday is Polly Jo's back with Soul Connections at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's on Wednesday. And so excited. Monday, tomorrow, the 10th, is publishing day for the September issue of Star Nations magazine. We're this close. We're going to be testing the magazine this afternoon to make sure all the links work, all the videos work, and tweaking what needs to be tweaked. And then we are poised to publish tomorrow, and I'll be publishing it in the afternoon on Monday afternoon, right? Yeah. Yay. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Time for the live stream for the cards. Yeah. So Bama Mina, that means in Potawatomi, until we see each other again. I love you guys.